This is the strategy inside everything. I'm Adam Pierno. All right, welcome back to another episode of the strategy inside everything. I am excited today to have my guest, Christina Garnett. She is the Senior Marketing Manager, Offline Community and Advocacy, which is a long way to say she knows how to bring people together. Christina, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Good. And I don't think I mentioned where you work. You're at HubSpot.
I am at HubSpot, yes.
So that has been a fun ride to see you jump into that big, huge community and apply your skills.
It's been really nice. It's a dream job, obviously. I've loved HubSpot for about 5-6 years. So it's nice to be able to see your city on the hill and it's still shining once you get inside of it.
Has it lived up to what you thought from the outside?
It has. Everyone's brilliant and kind and willing to help. When you wind up talking about the things that you need, there's always someone that jumps into the chat to say, how can I help? What can I do? What can I do? And so there's definitely this collaborative mindset, which is obviously refreshing.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, we are going to talk a little bit about that, but first we're going to talk about the thing you're a number one expert in, Foo Fighters. No, I wish I would. That's another podcast. I think
we'll just a sequel.
I feel like you probably could do an episode on Foo Fighters.
I could. Yeah, I'm down.
You're like, actually, if you don't mind, I have some theories.
They're on our deep cuts.
Yeah, exactly. Would you mind giving people who are not familiar with you just a sense of your background, kind of where you've been and what you've done before you got your new role at HubSpot? Newish role, I should say.
Absolutely. So I'm a bit of a polymath, English major in college, taught math for 5 years, then was a stay-at-home mother, got back into the professional field, started doing social media auditing and marketing. Have worked with nonprofits, small businesses, universities, Fortune 500 companies, agencies, a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. And found my way from social media auditing, marketing director, to strategist, to now I work at HubSpot.
That is quite a journey. I think the teaching aspect will probably come into this. I have a feeling.
It does a little bit of teaching, and like I joke that curiosity, I'm curious to a fault, and it's one major thread that kind of weaves through absolutely everything. Yeah.
Well, what I wanted to talk to you about specifically and indirectly, more than a year ago, you posted a tweet, and I have been checking in on you on this tweet. Like about every 6 weeks, I send you a DM that's like, I cannot believe people are still replying to this goddamn tweet.
It's the never ending tweet.
It's amazing. So it was very simple, very innocent, and very kind of you. Do you want to give people a summary? Just remind everybody. People listening to this probably gonna be like, oh, I've seen this. I actually introduced myself. What did you say?
I basically said, if you have less than 1,000 followers, and you work in marketing in some capacity, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about yourself, and introduce yourself to marketing Twitter.
Yeah. Now, this is not a social media stat show, so I don't care how it's performed, but I see it in my feed. I see people still a year later replying to it and still saying like, oh, I just found this and I'm happy to introduce myself. I have seen people still retweeting it on, I think it was December 20th, might be the anniversary. I saw people quote tweeting it and say, happy anniversary to this tweet.
Yes.
It's like a
December
weird,
3rd.
That's a newish Twitter phenomenon. Yeah. Tell me what you meant when you did that. Like, why? There was either a direct or indirect reason that you posted that. And what was it? What were you thinking?
I was sitting in my car. I had just pulled up from getting a coffee at Starbucks. And I find that it's really easy for the big names and for the clout monsters to kind of be heard, whether what they're saying is good or not. And I found that you can't really throw rocks at giants. Like it never accomplishes what you need it to accomplish. Everyone just thinks you're jealous instead of like, no, there's really genius people doing better work who are being ignored. And so I really found that the best way to combat that was to elevate the people who were doing great work, who were saying really insightful things. And for me, and I could be wrong, but from my experience, 1,000 really is that threshold from someone's going to take you seriously versus not take you seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times in my career, I've wanted someone to open a door for me, a door that I could never reach myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always just unnecessarily arduous for no reason. And so if I'm in a position where I can open that door for others, especially if they're doing like really great work, but just it's not that they aren't saying really great things, it's that the right people aren't saying it. And so if I can open a door for people to be able to connect with others, to learn from each other, to be able to share like how brilliant they are, then I'm going to do that. And that's actually going to make a bigger ripple than me throwing rocks at giants.
Yeah.
And so I put it out there, literally not expecting anything, just expecting like maybe 5 or 6 people to be like, hey, this is cool. I'm so-and-so. And it went bonkers.
Yeah. Did you tag anybody or did you just posted it up?
Just posted it. There's no hashtags. There's no tags. There's nothing. There's an extra space after a comma, which will always like bother the crap out of me. That's the only thing that's included.
Are you an edit button person or no?
I used to be an edit person. I'm not anymore.
Yeah, I don't care about it anymore. I'll leave it up there with a typo.
I think the negatives outweigh the positives. I can see how people would manipulate it. I could see how people could use that edit button to manipulate people, especially in the world of misinformation.
Yeah.
I used to be a diehard, like, give me an edit button. And now I'm like, no.
Yeah, right.
No.
It would be weaponized.
No, it would be weaponized immediately. And it's not worth it. I will live with knowing that like I'm educated. I know how to write. I just type really fast.
Yeah. Or sometimes I just make a kind of a fat thumb over something. And
yeah. I think that we're all adult enough to understand that we can type. We understand. It's just maybe we got really passionate about it. Or
you do get some actually people that are like, oh, that apostrophe is wrong. Or, say, well, there's another point actually at play here beyond the your correction that you just made, but thank you for contributing. I can now downvote your reply. How does that view of opening that door and putting the light on people that have less of a voice play into how you think about community? And I mean, online communities particularly, but we can talk about all kinds of community.
I think it really shifts the idea of audience to community because a lot of people, especially last year, when it was really becoming more of a buzzword, it was very interchangeable and it's really not. Mm-hmm. I think that when you open a door for other people, you're showcasing that it's not about you. And that for me is the heart of community. I'm going to bring people together and I may not personally benefit, but others will. Mm-hmm. And that's enough. And being able to create a spot for people to grow and connect with each other. There's people who have gotten jobs because of that tweet. There's people who've connected with best friends because of that tweet. There's Twitter meetups with people who they found their best friend from that. And so if I get to be this like tiny little conduit, that's really lovely. Like that's enough. Like that's cool. The payment.
As you are, I don't know what the right word is, as you're leading communities or as you're nurturing communities, maybe is the word. Is it more about creating the conditions for anyone inside the community to be successful, or for the community itself as the vessel to be successful, or are those connected in some way?
I love the term facilitate. I find that tends to really kind of showcase what you're doing. I think what it winds up, it's very much aligned to if you take care of your customers, like you'll see the growth that you want. If you take care of them, the other metrics will follow suit. Yeah. I feel the same way about the health of a community. If you're taking care and you're creating the environment, the ecosystem that they need to get what their needs are, they need to be taken care of, whether that be they want to connect, they want to learn, they want to grow, they want to have opportunities to speak. They want to work on their personal brand, whatever that looks like. If you create an ecosystem where they can be successful, then the growth and the health of the community will take care of itself because they're going to want to come back. They're going to want to invite friends. They're going to want to help others in the community. So it's very much if you drive the behaviors, and I think I tweeted about this a while back, you work your way backwards. If I think about the health of the community, these are the KPIs I'm looking at for success. So, okay, engagement, if I'm looking at engagement as my major KPI as to, are we doing a good job? Is this healthy? What does success look like? If I go from there and I say, okay, the engagement numbers, well, what behaviors do I need in order for that metric to be met? Okay, right. Cool. Well, what can I do to make the people in the community want to do that behavior? What needs to be in place? How can I make it easier for them to do that? How can I make it more convenient? How can I incentivize that behavior? And then working your way out so that at the very end, the core of what you're getting deeper and deeper into is, how do I take care of the members? How do I take care of their needs? And how do their needs align with what we are judging the success of the community on? That's another thing, is there's a lot of problems with community when they don't see really quick wins, and they don't think to realize that the needs of their community needs to align with the KPIs. Because if their behaviors don't match what I'm deeming as success, then on paper, it's never going to look like a success. You have to make sure that you have very clear understanding of what their needs are, what behaviors they will do based on those needs, and how does that align with how we want the community to act as a whole.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then aligning those, whatever the KPIs or whatever your goals are, to what the community is going to be asked to do or what they naturally want to do. If those things aren't aligned, it feels disingenuous to the members. They start to realize, like, why do they keep asking me to do this thing that this isn't why we're here? Yep. Have you observed that behavior before? Or when do communities break down? I guess I'm putting words in your mouth and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, no worries. I'm a part of a lot of communities. Sadly, I'm a lurker on most of them because I'm an observer. I'm that person. If you see me at a live event, I'm usually very quiet and I'm in a corner and I'm watching everybody. Like, that's me. I just constantly I'm looking at behavior. How are people working with each other and deconstructing that? And I'm very much the same way when I'm in communities. I find that there is this really perfect balance of give and take. And you have to make sure that you're giving enough so that when you take, it doesn't feel like, it feels like, well, of course I would do this for you. You've made this like amazing environment for me. It doesn't feel like you're taking something. It almost feels like, oh, this is a way I can say thank you for you, for everything you've done for me in this community. So I find that like with the advocates that I work with, I'm very particular about how I talk to them. And I want to make sure that I'm giving them more opportunities than I am asking for things, because it needs to be, it needs to be mutually beneficial, but it needs to weigh heavier on them. Like, they need to be feeling like they are getting more out of this relationship than I am, because that's what makes you feel loved. If it's reciprocity, it feels very much like tit for tat. But if I receive more from someone than I give to them, then it feels like they really care about me. They love me. They want me to be happy. And that's how I feel about my advocates. I want them to feel appreciated. I want them to feel special. I want them to feel like when I ask them to do something, they understand why I'm asking, and they understand all the things that they're getting in exchange. And I feel like that transparency and that mutually beneficial thing is it takes time to cultivate that. And a lot of brands get that wrong because they immediately want to ask for something.
Yeah.
And you have to build that relationship. You have to build that trust, and it needs to make sense to them why they're doing something.
Yeah. The other thing is, you mentioned tit for tat, reciprocity. I would say transactional is what can I give to the community? A lot of times turns into like, what are the easy things?
Yeah.
Tips and tricks. And here's some kind of an Easter egg we'll tuck into a message or a post, Yeah. How do you identify what are the meaningful pieces that you can gift that are appreciated? Like what's that work? And then I guess, how do you, inside an organization, how do you get that stuff? Because it's hard. It's usually more expensive in some way or another. A lot of times it's time that costs money to create that stuff.
Yeah.
How do you advocate for those pieces?
I'm in a unique position because I was a Hub fan before Hub fans was a thing. So I know what it's like on the outside looking in and wanting a piece of the pie, wanting to feel seen and appreciated. And so I do a lot of social listening, and I am constantly talking to the advocates, making sure that they feel loved and appreciated. But I always think, like, when I'm looking at their post, whether they mention HubSpot or not, I'm always thinking, like, what are you up to? What are you doing? What are your goals? Where are you headed? And how can I share that? And it might be like retweeting a piece of content that they created. It might be making sure that if I see an opportunity that would be great for them, that I tag them in something.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, my advocates are more than advocates to me. I definitely want to be seen as someone that's in their corner, and I want them to be successful, and I want them to feel appreciated. And so when I'm looking at things for them, and I talk to them all the time, I do surveys, but I'll say, like, what's important to you? What is motivating you? Where are you headed? Do you want to be a speaker at something? Are you working on an ebook? Are you creating content? How can I be your fan? And that's why, like, I jokingly call myself a fan of the fans, because I want to support them the way they support HubSpot. So how can I put you in a position to be more successful? And that could be that you get the opportunity to speak in a HubSpot Academy certification course. It could be that you speak at a hug. It could be that you're an inbound correspondent like we had earlier this year. There's all of these opportunities for them to really be the subject matter experts and to be the hero. And that honestly is my job. Is a lot of marketers say, like, make your customer the hero, but, like, I get to do that. Like, I'm the one that puts the cape on them. I'm the one that, like, makes sure, like, is this the logo you want? Is this the branding you want? How can I make sure people know about you? And so for me, it's something that a lot of brands struggle with, because you need someone that genuinely loves those people. You can't just say, like, all right, well, here's a logo, here's this, we're going to send them this email. The thing is that you want so badly to automate everything, and love can't be automated.
That's crazy. I mean, that's such a known thing, but to hear it put so plainly is like, oh yeah, of course. Especially when you work at a place, HubSpot, which is in the business of automating those things, to identify that there has to be a heart behind it, even though the sending and the metrics and the analytics will all be simplified for you.
Yeah. I mean, like, metrics matter, but I very much believe if I take care of them and I make them feel loved back, the numbers will take care of themselves, and they have.
You did community management as a part of some of your other roles before you got to HubSpot, as part of, social media management.
I did.
Where do brands fall down there when they fail at community management? Like, where do they?
The biggest thing is and I've said this in previous things, but they're so focused on crisis comms and putting out fires that they ignore, and they don't adequately love the people who say positive things back. And so when you only pay attention to people when they're yelling at you, you're conditioning your audience to only talk about you when they're mad.
Yeah.
There's so many people who feel special and loved and seen and appreciated with just liking something. Like, you don't even have to respond. Like, if you just like something, like, I'm a perfect example of this. Mark Hamill's liked about 20 of my tweets, and it may not even be him. It could be an assistant, but every single time he does it, like, my heart flutters because I love him. Yeah. He's Luke Skywalker. He's the Joker. But it's little things like that. And brands do the same thing. And I've had brands like my stuff, and I will know the social media person. Like, I literally know the human who tapped the button, and it still feels special. Like, it still, like, makes me giddy and makes me feel excited. It makes me feel seen. Yeah. And that's the thing is, brands, they want these relationships, but they don't do the small things well. Like, they'll send like $1,000 PR package to an influencer that'll get like 3 likes, and no one will actually buy the product they're influencing, but they won't tap a like for free.
Somebody who complimented them.
On someone who loves them and is now going to tell every single person they've ever met that someone just liked their thing. Like, that's what's so striking to me. It's the little things that cost very little money and take seconds. Like, you can make someone feel special in seconds. Yep. You just have to do it. And they're so focused. And granted, you need to take care of people who are angry. But if you just spent just some time talking to the people and loving on the people who if someone's saying like, hey, which CRM should you use? I'm looking for people, whether they tag HubSpot or not. I'm looking for the people who mention us and liking it and sending orange hearts, because they are giving us free word of mouth. They are getting people to look at us for free, for absolutely nothing. And the only thing I have to do in return is say like, hey, I see you, thanks. That's such a small ask. And so many brands don't do it. They will spend that time trying to like the thing that kills me, the thing that absolutely kills me. As a marketer, I love it and hate it. It's when you have all these brands do threads where they like talk to each other. And a part
it's amusing.
When I first started doing it, I really loved it because I was like, this is really cute. But then the more I saw that, I was like, that's time that you could be talking to someone that loves you. That's time that you could be talking to someone who doesn't feel appreciated. Yeah. That's time that you could be talking to someone who's recommended you to 20 different people this month. Like you're showing that you have the time, but you wanted a stunt instead. And for me, social media is such a unique opportunity to have a one-to-one relationship with your audience. And so many don't do it. They're looking for what's going to get them in like ad week or ad age next week. Like what stunt can we do to get awareness, instead of actually creating these really special moments with customers and potential customers. Like,
is it more effective community for HubSpot is B2B that is enabling communication as a brand, as a product? Budweiser or Wendy's, and those are top of mind because they do a lot of those brand to brand chain conversations. Does Wendy's have a community around it? I know people like the snarky tone, but I wouldn't think that's a real community. I like Wendy's is fine. I eat Wendy's somewhat regularly. But when I look at it's mostly people like hanging on, like watching a comedian.
Yeah.
Like, what is Rickles going to say next? Okay. Oh, he burned him. All right, great. Or she, I guess, in this case.
I think that it's an audience that could be turned into a community if done correctly. They definitely have diehard fans. They definitely have people who kind of lean into them. But I've never, there's never been a Wendy's tweet that made me want to eat their food.
Yeah. And
like, there's never been anything where I was like, they made me laugh. I'm going to go get fries.
And the
it's never done that to me.
I can eat there once a month and never having seen their Twitter. It's not additive at all. It's a separate thing. Like I can look at it as an entertainment without it being part of the food experience. Maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. But for like what you're building, it seems more integrated into the experience of using that tool, that suite of tools.
It can be. The community is very much focused on, like, the way the current community is set up is it's, when you go there, it's very support focused. There's a search bar. You can go ahead and ask your questions, but you can also join groups and everything else. Mm-hmm. What I like about the community is that you might go in, you join the community because you're a user or a partner, but you come back because of the people that are there, because of the resources and the opportunities are there. So I find that it's HubSpot is the connector. Like that's the common thread that runs through everyone there. But once they're there, they're doing different things. They might want to connect with others. They might want to take a course. They might want to learn. They might want to help someone else. They might want to become a subject matter expert. So I find that the community for HubSpot is incredibly inbound focused. It feels intrinsically HubSpot-y because it's all about giving value. And it's all about, you can come to this place, you can meet others, and there's not one single person that knows absolutely how to do everything within HubSpot.
Right.
But you have a core group of people who have a very similar mindset to HubSpotters, where they have heart, they want to help. They're not gatekeepers. They definitely want to make sure that, like, if they see that you have a question about something and you're struggling and they've had a similar issue, they're very open to saying like, hey, I ran through this exact same issue. This is how I solved it. This is what I did. I find that that's such a common thread in the HubSpot community, is that it is a community of helpers. They're very, very selfless. You'll see partners go in there and give advice to other customers, not their customers. They're not paying them for that. They could very easily be like, I'd love to help you with this, but you would have to hire me. But that energy is not there.
Yeah.
Like they're very, it comes from this place of, oh, you like HubSpot? Cool. We're friends. Let's help each other. And that's just really priceless to me.
That's interesting, because having done enough technology and using enough products and Googling solutions and ending up on Stack Exchange or the Microsoft Help Network or any of those, I don't know what that thing's called. You get the answer ultimately if you Google and find the keyword and re-Google, usually 3 or 4 times. But you don't get a sense. It's very nice when occasionally you stumble into a chat where someone has asked the question and you can see the community, one person building on another. But I think more of Stack Exchange in that way than I do of most brands. Do you think the community that HubSpot has invested in and that you've been really considering over the past year or so, is that kind of becoming a brand element that is drawing the specific type of customer that wants to participate and wants to help and wants to, yes, receive help, but also to contribute and say, oh, I learned this and now I can share it with the next person in 6 months when they ask?
Yes, it's definitely a strategic advantage for sure. It not only creates a safety net in a way. If I have questions, I have my support, but I also have an entire network of people who have done similar things and who I can reach out to and really kind of have a back and forth. But we're also looking at other events and opportunities for people to do something more. So like with Hub Fans Council for next year, a lot of what I want to do is like peer mentorship. How can we create these connections where I know how to use this tool, but like I need to level up? What does that even look like? Well, there's a partner or this person who's like the president of their company who worked their way up. And now they're in a capacity to be like, I'd love to mentor someone else. And so now you're creating these deeper connections. And so, like I said, HubSpot, the connection with HubSpot is the foundation, but we're building branches off of that now. Like, what can the community do once you're here? And you can learn from each other and you can figure out how to best facilitate your needs using HubSpot. That's amazing. But what's next?
Yeah.
Like I'm very much a fan of like surprise and delight has to continually elevate, because if I surprise and delight you today and I do the same thing next week, that second one doesn't feel as special as the first.
You get a shrug, right?
Yeah. You have to constantly keep growing what you're offering. And so for me, it's all right. Now this foundation set up. What's next? What are the branches that we can start growing to really facilitate this? And the root is HubSpot, but what can we grow from that?
I don't know a lot about HubSpot. I'm not a user, so I apologize. But
you're always welcome.
But what I see people who use it commenting about it, they really seem to like it. They get a good benefit from it. So I don't think my question is going to apply to HubSpot. Can a good community approach ultimately overcome a substandard offering? You know, if the product is not delivering, can the community save it?
It depends. It depends on how receptive the brand is to the community. Great example of this is there's no perfect product out there. I don't think anyone who says there's a perfect product is lying, like whether they realize it or not. So HubSpot has the ideas forum, and it's literally a forum where customers and partners come in there and say like, hey, I really need this, or why can't it do this? Or why can't we have this? And so the community is giving you market research. They're giving you data. They're giving you information. They're giving you everything in one place for you to be like, all right, what are they missing? What do they want? And so in that capacity, HubSpot and the project manager and the product teams, they look at the ideas forum to see like, what are they asking for? Is that something that's already on our roadmap? Is that something that we didn't even realize was a thing? All of these things. So you'll see in the ideas forum, people can upvote it. They can like it to make sure that it gets more like these are the things that a lot of people want. And you'll see people say like, hey, I put this on the ideas fair and please go vote for it. So they'll realize like how much of a need we have for it.
We do this in my office too with a product called Reich, where someone will Slack the whole 100-person unit and say, hey, everybody go upvote this idea. We need this implemented.
Exactly. Now, if the brand has something similar to this, like HubSpot does, and they listen, then the community is a conduit for constantly improving the product.
And that's good.
And it's very good. It's priceless.
Yeah.
So in that capacity, community can tell you exactly what's wrong, exactly what they need, exactly what's missing. And now instead of being like, well, we have it and we have these customers, instead of that meeting, like, well, what do they want? You can pull out the URL and be like, I can tell you exactly what they want.
Yeah.
And I can tell you here's a list and here's the priorities and here's the comments and sometimes they'll not only give you an idea, they'll tell you how they would implement it. And so community, exactly. So community can definitely do that as long as the brand is receptive and uses that information to improve the product.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a community and they're keep yelling at you about like, I need this, or why can't we do this? Or this doesn't work. Why can't we do this instead? And the brand isn't receptive. Now what you've done is you've turned a community that once loved you and wants to be helpful now feels ignored. And now you have the opposite of advocates. Now you have these people who feel completely demonized and taken for granted. And now not only will speak badly about you, about your brand, but also could theoretically turn into advocates for a competitor because they'd be like, you're not going to listen to me? Well, they will. Yeah.
That's funny. So you give them the tools, but if you don't then take some of the feedback or respond or engage, if it's just going into a mailbox that nobody checks, it's harmful.
It's harmful. It turns that community against you because you've given them an opportunity to talk to you, but you've turned it into a vacuum instead. And so over time, they're like, they've given me this, but they don't listen and they don't respond. And so now at first I was like, I was helping you. Now I feel ignored. Now I feel taken for granted. And now you have resentment.
Yeah. Yeah. And frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Because I came to you, you told me to tell you when I see an opportunity or when I have a problem, and here it is. And you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
How much do you weigh offline social listening to comments, in that platform environment or, direct communication to customer success?
You gotta look at all of it.
Yeah.
Because people also communicate differently on different platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So a great example is Twitter versus Reddit. I do a lot of social listening on Twitter and Reddit, but let's say that you're in DevRel. You are more likely, I get a lot more content from Reddit than I do Twitter because there's more opportunity for characters in Reddit. And people just tend to believe that there's going to be more like technical people there. So that if I talk to you about this, like I'm a developer, here's what the struggles I'm having, here's the question I have, they're more likely to feel like someone's going to respond to them versus putting something on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Twitter, they might like say their frustration or they might say like, hey, I'm having questions about this. But because of the character count and because of the audience that they feel connected to, they're not going to be as specific on Twitter versus Reddit. So on Reddit, not only can I figure out like, all right, these are the problems that they're having. These are the questions that we're having. Is this something our team knows about? Did someone do a really great job of answering that question? And maybe I should see if they want to be a Hub fan, if they want to be an advocate and be rewarded because they're already doing stuff for us. They're already helping. All of those things you need to make sure that you're listening to, because a lot of people, another problem that brands have is that they only take the time to look at stuff where they're specifically mentioned. So if there's not an @ they're not looking at the stuff.
Yeah.
And you miss out on quite a lot of things. Like you miss out on a lot of gold, because if you only look at the stuff where you're mentioned, like with an @ so it tags you, if you only look at that, you're only seeing the content that they want you to see. You're not seeing the casual conversations where they recommended you, or the casual conversations where they're like, well, I like HubSpot, but ... Like you miss out on a lot of praise. You miss out on a lot of hate. You miss out on a lot of neutral stuff.
Especially where people are asking for comparison advice. Hey, I'm looking at these 3 They're not tagging brands in a Reddit
No.
thread or even on Twitter even in Google searches where they'd say, hey, show me side by side who's used these three.
Yeah.
You're right. There's insights that just get missed if you're only capturing those tags. Those are very deliberately placed, especially in a certain part of the funnel.
Yeah. If you're just looking at the tags, those people want to make sure you see them. Either they have a problem and they are super pissed and they want you to handle it ASAP, or they absolutely love you and they want to make sure that you see them.
Yeah. Right.
But other than that, they're just going to say the name of your company, or they're going to talk about your industry, or they're going to talk about your competitor. I'm a firm believer in looking for the stuff that isn't like hashtags. Like hashtags are fine, but I'm going to go straight to native and I'm going to look for just the words without the hashtag, without the at. And I'm going to look for people, like, how do they naturally communicate? People don't naturally communicate with ats and hashtags. And especially if they're in a hurry, they're definitely not.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that you're looking at that, because there's a lot of information that you don't see otherwise.
What are you using for listening now? Or are you just doing native?
I do native. The thing is that the API access is so different across platforms that I always do native first, because you know that you're going to get everything that you can, versus if you're going through a platform, there might be a cutoff, or there might be something that just like doesn't get through. And so it's not in your feed, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Right.
So I usually start my day and I go on Twitter and Reddit and just search HubSpot and just see like, what's happening?
Yeah.
What's going on? How are things? Are things really great? Is there someone who's a big advocate for us that I didn't realize, that I can be like, hey, let me introduce myself. Let's be friends. How can I help you? Other times is someone having an issue, but they didn't tag support. And so I want to make sure support gets in touch with them and sees their issue and gets taken care of. So it's just these little things that, I love native, but I also I use Twitter natively too. Like everyone thinks I have like TweetDeck and I do all these other things. I'm like, no, I love native. I love native.
Yeah. I don't use TweetDeck either. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to do native. I feel like I have as much access to everything as I need without it being, I don't want it to look like work. If I put everything in TweetDeck, it would look like work. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. I need it to feel fun.
Yeah. That makes sense to me. You have in your title, which I didn't know until right when we started recording this, you have the word offline community and advocacy. Tell me what that means, because I think of you very much as online. And I think when I reached out to you, I said, I want to talk about online communities, which I consider you an expert in. But the deliberate placement of the word offline in your title, tell me more.
So much of what HubSpot does, even though like obviously you're online, you're using the tools, all these things. There's still very much a global network of people who need human connection, who want to talk to each other, who want to meet in person and all these things. And offline can mean multiple things. So not only does it mean in person, does it mean not online, but it also means the stuff that like is not HubSpot community. So there are Slack communities that I'm a part of that HubSpot might be mentioned in, but it's not HubSpot's Slack channel. There's multiple opportunities for us to have advocates in other groups and other communities and on message boards that we don't own, but they want to represent us. And then the idea that, like for me, inbound is like the quintessential community. Like I'm an introvert. I know it doesn't feel that way when I talk about marketing, my introvert phase. But like, I don't like big rooms. I don't like lots of people. But if you put me in Lane Stadium at a football game, you put me at a Foo Fighters concert, or you put me at Inbound, like the serotonin takes care of it. Like I thrive. But that's the thing. Like you go to Inbound and it is like, it's perfect community to me. I can be standing in line waiting for a coffee, and I know that the people around me, if I start talking about my work, they're going to get it. And in a world where like, there's all these jokes about like, hey, how did you explain what you do for a living to your parents over Christmas? Like that kind of thing. You get to go to a place like Inbound. It's like, these people get it. These people understand. These people get me. And I go anywhere else, I'm a complete weirdo who just wants to talk about like Twitter and Reddit and like advocacy and community. I go there and they're like, these are my people. And so I really find that that offline piece really kind of ties everything together, because it doesn't just live online. We live in a hybrid world now. We do desperately need the ability to be able to connect face to face and to be able to sit in a room together, or just like have drinks afterwards and just talk about like the sessions we loved and hated.
Yeah.
Versus jumping on a Zoom call or being on message boards together, or being in Twitter DMs. I mean, we very much live in both. We need both now. There's not going to be just this all offline world. And so it's really nice to be able to speak to people across different countries, across different, whether they're a customer or a partner, and varying tiers of those. Understanding that someone can be a free CRM user, or they can be like an elite partner.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure they're all taken care of. And so it broadens my scope so that I can really take care of everyone, no matter what their connection to HubSpot.
Is that how you approached a classroom when you were a teacher? Not so much the teaching, but
Mm-hmm.
there's 30 desks,
Mm-hmm.
and not all the people sitting at those desks need the same thing to get from lesson to lesson. Is it the same? You want to show each of them that you care, but everybody receives care differently?
Yes. My second job was at the Fletcher School in Charlotte, and it's a school for students with learning differences.
Mm-hmm.
And we went through training, Orton Gillingham training specifically, and it's all about differentiated instruction and how to teach students who might have short-term to long-term memory issues, who might have dyslexia, dyspraxia, who might have, they might just learn differently, and they're in a capacity where they've been put in a different school so that they can get the specific training, they can get the learning that they need. And so for me, differentiated instruction, whether I'm focusing on someone who's auditory or is more tactile or is a visual learner, being able to figure out how can I take care of these individual needs so that they feel successful, because their differences are the reason why they're being deemed unsuccessful. But if I can tailor my work to their needs, then they can be successful, and they don't feel like failures because the system around them didn't take care of them. And so that was definitely a huge part for me. Like you said, the teaching will come back. It did. But differentiated instruction is incredibly important to me. There are some people who just want swag, like they're happy, like they're fine. There's others who want to be speakers and they want to be subject matter experts. Like everyone has different motivations, and everyone is in a different place in their life based on what their needs are. And so I do what I can to try to learn as much as I can about each individual advocate and their role in the community and what their needs are, because if I give the same thing to everybody and I talk to everybody exactly the same, no one feels special. It doesn't matter what I give them. When they realize that, like, she talks the same to everybody, she gives the same opportunities to everybody, it needs to feel different. It needs to feel special. And so I ask myself every day, like, how can I make them feel special? How can I make them feel appreciated? And when I'm creating plans for next year and strategy and what that looks like and what the opportunities I could offer them, it all comes down to, would this make them feel special? And I found, like you said earlier, time is the biggest thing that tends to be the biggest gift. It really is. It's time and access.
Yeah.
People really like swag's great, but it's very foundational. I see swag as like, hey, I see you. But if you can be in a chat with like people that you've known for years on Twitter, but you've never had a chance to talk to them, or you get like a special VIP access to do certain things, knowing that you get that opportunity, and then you see the other people who have that opportunity, and you're like, I understand why I am here. I understand. I've seen what these other people do too, and I understand our connection with each other and what we've done similarly. That's just really powerful. A really great example of that is we had a couple inbound correspondents who English is not their first language. It's not their primary language. And we had a a meeting to kind of like answer any remaining questions before inbound started. And a couple of them were just very uncomfortable and they tried to speak in English and everything else. And I was like, I'm just glad you're here. And when you're creating content and you're sharing your stuff on LinkedIn and Twitter and anywhere else about inbound, if you want it to be in Spanish or Italian or whatever, like do that, because that makes you feel more comfortable. You're going to be able to express yourself in a better way, but that also opens up your content to other people who didn't get a chance to go to inbound because they don't speak English.
Right.
And so
that's a barrier that you're overcoming.
Yeah, that's a huge barrier that you feel more comfortable, but you're also democratizing that content and creating access for others. That's a good thing. And so just things like that, like how can you make it so that people can lean into their strengths? Before they had Hubstars originally, and we brought it back, and before it was all gamified, but I very much wanted community and gamification because not everyone advocates the same way. There are people who love us, but they don't care about points or badges.
Right.
They don't want to do challenges. They think it's stupid. There are others who are in the community, but are lurkers, and they just don't feel comfortable talking to each other, but they will take every single challenge I put up there, and they should both feel equally welcome.
Yep.
There's no one way to be a fan of something. And I don't want people to feel like they're not welcome because they don't follow like the script that they think needs to be set.
Mm-hmm. Do you, going back to having a classroom and all that you learned and applying that community, has that ever been a challenge of scale for you? 30 students in a classroom versus, I don't know how many thousands of customers, users, hub supporters you have, partners, whatever the words are that you use there.
Yeah.
Is that scale overwhelming at times, or are you able to just break it off into bite-sized pieces?
I prioritize what I need to do and what their needs are. Obviously, as we continue to grow, you need to scale the team just as the community scales. So it will eventually need to grow. It'll eventually need to be a bigger team. But for right now, the way that I work through it is I'm very particular about prioritizing what needs to be done now. What can wait? What needs to be done? What needs to be prepared? And also, just like I said before, like just being very careful about what are their needs and what is most at risk if I'm overwhelmed. If I'm doing too much, what are the risks? Who's gonna be impacted the most by that, and how can we minimize that risk?
Yep.
So just a lot of like future planning has been really helpful in making sure that because it is easy to, as it scales, everyone takes a step back, and then it doesn't feel as special.
Right.
Like being in a room of 20 versus being in a room of 20,000. Exactly. Very different. Very different. So yeah, it's definitely something that I keep an eye on, and I'm just I try to be very mindful about my interactions, who I talk to, how I talk to them, and then who do I need to work with to make things better, to make things easier and taken care of. And then, I make it so that people can contact me. Like I have Hub fans that are in the community, but we're better on Twitter DM. So we DM each other. If they need anything, they know they can reach out to me, and vice versa. And so meeting them on their ground, where they feel most comfortable, is also incredibly helpful.
Nice. Well, I want to make sure I let you get back to work. You are working today. I am off.
Yeah. No worries.
Sucker. Thank you so much, Christina, for making time for me today. I appreciate the chance to catch up with you again.
Absolutely. It was great.
Where can people find you online besides everywhere?
Twitter, Instagram, Medium. I'm that Christina G. Find me wherever. And you can learn more about Hub fans if you just search. Actually, just contact me, and I can give you a full detailed list of what we do, what we offer, and see if it's a good fit for you.
Awesome. I will link to that original tweet from last year that just had its recent 1-year birthday.
And we do have an official marketing Twitter community now on Twitter communities, which is nice.
Oh yeah, that's right. You started that. I did join that. So
yep. So hopefully that'll bring more people in.
I feel like it's going to take off soon. I know you started it just before Christmas, so it's people have been joining, but so far it hasn't done what I think it will do in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, hope so. Yeah. I think right now we're around like 560 people, so it's not too big.
Yeah, still time to get in on the ground floor.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks again, Christina. Great talking to you.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Strategy Inside Everything is produced by me, Adam Pierno. If you liked what you heard, please leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast. It really helps. For more information about me, Adam Pierno, you can go to Garnett.app. There's information about my books, my speaking, and my strategy work. Have an idea for a guest? Send it my way. Just go to Garnett.app and you'll find a form there that'll help you connect. Thanks for listening.